Hello class, today we're covering Module 11 and this is about infancy and childhood, and in particular we're focusing on brain development and then some social and attachment development and parenting styles. But we're going to go ahead and jump right on in here. First of all, the neurons in your brain are pretty much all there by the time you're born, and so it's really the experiences that we have in life that establish the communication networks among those neurons. But we don't actually grow a lot of new neurons once we're born. As you might remember from earlier in the course, when we are deprived of certain stimuli early in life, we can lose some of those abilities because the neurons don't have a chance to get stimulated. You might remember the kitten goggles study. I might have mentioned that, where the cats were restricted at birth from seeing horizontal lines, and the neurons, the feature detectors in the cortex, were never stimulated by horizontal lines. So those cats never did develop the ability to see horizontal lines. So our genes kind of are responsible for laying down the basic design of the brain, and all the neurons are there, but it's the experience, or the nurture component, that really constructs the development of the networks, the communication lines, if you will, of those neurons. So along the lines of that idea that if we're restricted from certain experiences, we call that a critical period. And you can see on the chart there, there are certain critical periods for visual development, speech, emotional development, math and logical reasoning, things of that nature. And you don't have to know what all those critical periods are. I just want you to know what a critical period is. Without exposure to these certain types of stimulation, the proper neural networks may not develop, and people could be behind in those skills and those developmental areas for the rest of their life. Sometimes people are a little behind due to some neglect and such early in life, but because the brain has some degree of plasticity, if the neglect isn't too bad, sometimes the brain will kind of catch up to other people the same age eventually. But we can't rely on that, because sometimes that's not the case. But one of the things about critical periods is that a lot of products for children and babies are based off this premise. And the idea is kind of like, if you buy our product, which plays classical music, you're going to hit the critical period that will cause your child's brain to really develop really well compared to kids who don't have this experience. And a lot of that is really just a bunch of bull. And I wanted to show you one example of that, how this product called Your Baby Can Read, which was really popular a couple of years ago. They played off of this idea, but all the developmental experts were behind the scenes calling the product a bunch of malarkey, just like a lot of other products like that. But I want to show you the video on today. They talked about this. I remember that they kind of launched an investigation into the product, and it's kind of funny, but also kind of sad that the company kind of were trying to take advantage of people and their worries about missing out on the critical period.
Back now at 7:41, and this morning on Rawson Reports, big new developments in a story we've been investigating about the popular reading program, Your Baby Can Read. Today, national investigative correspondent Jeff Rawson first went after the truth about this product, and he's got the latest now. Big developments, Jeff.
Yeah, big developments. A lot of parents have this in their homes, and I've been looking into this company for 2 years. We did stories about how Your Baby Can Read was raking in millions, experts say, by misleading and deceiving parents. Now the company says what we exposed here on Today caused them to go out of business under a pile of legal bills.
Your Baby Can Read. What you are about to see will amaze you.
Which one says keys?
The commercials were amazing.
What does this say? Ooh, what about this word? Swing.
Oh, good job.
These words say,
Those babies sure look like they're reading, and if you bought this $200 program, the ads claimed your baby could too.
my daughter began reading by the time she was 8 months old.
Your Baby Can Read came with flashcards, pop-up books, and lots of DVDs for kids to watch. They said it's based on science that all babies can read.
Seize this small window of opportunity before it closes.
Warning that if you miss that window, your child would fall behind. So we had experts review the program at Harvard. Are those babies reading?
No.
And Tufts.
It's an extraordinary manipulation of facts.
And NYU.
I think it's misleading, I think it's false, and I think it raises false expectations.
Experts say this isn't reading, it's just memorization. In fact, they say it may be harmful to babies by urging them to watch TV. And this is the man behind it all, Dr. Robert Titzer, the creator of Your Baby Can Read. Now, new court papers say it was our interview with Titzer in 2010 that exposed the truth about his claims and caused his empire to come crumbling down.
We are changing the way people are looking at reading.
We've spoken with child development experts from some of the world's most prestigious universities, and I'll list them for you. Harvard, Yale, Tufts, NYU, Cornell, Penn. And they say that your program is not only misleading, but it's false.
Well, they're all wrong. We have a book full of studies that support the use of our program. It's literally thicker than this.
Can you provide us that research?
Yes, I can.
But instead of published research on Your Baby Can Read, he sent us this customer satisfaction survey conducted by his own company, along with general studies about child learning that experts we spoke to say he's twisting and taking out of context.
I'm not a traditional expert as far as reading, a reading specialist person. I'm looking at this from a different perspective.
Right, but the name of your
which
program
is
is Your Baby Can Read.
The baby does learn to read.
Based on that interview, Titzer's parent company fired him, and now they're suing him too, calling his appearance on the Today Show disastrous, causing substantial damage to sales. Once a company valued at $50 to $60 million, they're now in financial peril.
One video?
By the way, much of the research he cited for the program
She actually started reading words.
seemed to be based on his own daughter using it.
My children could read better at age 4 than I could at age, at my age. So
You're saying your 4-year-old was a better
Of
reader
course,
than
that's
you as an
right.
adult?
That's correct. And not only that, I was teaching in college at the time, and she could read better than my college students.
Now, the company's website says they're out of business. While we vehemently deny any wrongdoing,
Well, all right, there you have it. His 4-year-old was a better reader than all of you guys. So anyway, that company did mention in the advertisement for that product, don't miss this window of opportunity when they were talking about the critical period for brain development, in particular for reading. And they didn't call it a critical period in the infomercial, but they did refer to this special window of opportunity. And that's what they were basically referring to without actually using the word critical period. So all children really need for proper brain development and for all their neurons to connect appropriately and for all the skills they'll need in life are normal things that you would find in any household. People to play with them, to talk with them, letting them crawl around, letting them grab some things, touch some things, squeeze things. Reading to them is one of the most valuable things you can do for brain development. So I've even heard experts say simple things like banging on pots and pans with a spoon. They're learning rudimentary basic things from that, like different objects make different sounds and different size objects make different sounds. Stacking blocks and knocking them over is teaching them very rudimentary addition and subtraction concepts. 2 blocks on top of each other is more than 1 block. Things falling over relate to gravity and understanding, basic physics concepts and stuff like that. So when you think of it in that way, it's true. We had significant generations prior to us did not have a lot of fancy stuff to grow up with and learn. And they turned out pretty darn well. Some of the greatest minds in the history of the world of course, didn't have all these fancy stuff and didn't need it. So we'll move on to the topic of social development and human bonding. And in particular, we're talking about attachment. And attachment is the emotional bond that develops between a child and a caregiver. In most cases, the strongest attachment is to the mom, because moms do most of the child care things at home. Even in dual income households where both parents are working full-time jobs, moms still do about 65, on average, about 65% of the child rearing type tasks in the home. But for a long time, decades ago, researchers were curious to understand why infants attached to moms, and like what really was the causal relationship there for attachment. And some researchers propose that it was kind of like animals who like imprint or attach to the first moving thing that they see. Others, like Harry Harlow, was a little more curious about that. He thought it was something more to it than that. Some researchers believe that it was because moms fed them or nourished them. And if you put this in a historical context, most women back then were at home caring for their children, a lot of homemakers. And breastfeeding was the most common way to feed your child back then, before the development of modern day formulas and stuff like that. So some people thought it was feeding. So Harry Harlow decided to develop an experiment to test that theory. And this is one of those classic experiments in psychology. So I'm going to show you a little clip that explains his research and what he found based on his research.
This monkey is an orphan, separated from his mother since the day of his birth. Literally, his life hangs by a thread, a soft cheesecloth pad that is his only companion, his only comfort. Once a day, the pad is removed for cleaning.
This is the laboratory of psychologist Harry Harlow.
Distressed. Permanently depressed.
He is studying monkeys to better understand human relationships.
He may die for want of love.
Harlow believes he can use science to study love. With a series of pioneering experiments, he explores territory where few scientists have ventured.
Harlow said that there was such a thing as a science of love. For example, that love, the kind of intimacy that characterized relationships between mothers and infants, although in his case he studied monkeys, could be the object of science, that you literally could move love into a laboratory, put it under a microscope.
Harlow is studying love because he believes it makes an indelible impact on human life. The relationship between a mother and her child, what Harlow calls our earliest social environment, could hold the key to explaining behavior throughout life. Harlow designs a set of ingenious experiments. He raises a baby monkey, allowing it to choose between two surrogate mothers, a wire mother that feeds it, and a cloth mother that doesn't. A cloth mother that Harlow thinks might provide something else: comfort and love.
Here's baby 106, weaned on a wire mother. He's going to the wire mother.
But this infant quickly runs to the cloth mother, where he will stay for the next 18 hours cuddling.
So what Harlow found was that the baby monkeys preferred the soft terry cloth mother, which he felt was an important ingredient for attachment, what he called contact comfort, which your textbook is simply referring to as body contact. But there was something interesting about these monkeys. They did prefer the soft terry cloth covered surrogate mom, but these monkeys went on to develop really abnormal socialization patterns. At one point, like, they did not play well or were comfortable around other monkeys. which is unusual because monkeys in general are pretty social animals. And they would not mate when they got older. So some of them were artificially impregnated when they got older, and they were either neglectful or even abusive to their firstborn babies, which is also very odd because primates are generally considered very good parents. So there's something unusual, even though contact comfort was important for them growing up with the surrogates. What we know now was missing from even that relationship was the lack of responsiveness. So nothing to talk to it, nothing to communicate with it. You know, when this monkey squeezes a soft terry cloth towel, it doesn't get squeezed back. You know, there's no response to him. So we know now that that's a critically important component of attachment and strong emotional development as well, is this contact comfort, but also the responsiveness. For many years in the United States, in the 1800s and early 1900s even, we had orphanages where there were so many children placed for adoption and living in orphanages, there weren't enough caregivers to spend quality time with them. So there was just enough staff to feed them and change them and bathe them. But otherwise, they would be left in cribs by themselves or with other babies the majority of the day without any real stimulation. Nobody really to play with them or cuddle them and all that stuff. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of orphanages like this throughout the world. In the United States, we recognized that problem is that these children were being deprived of their emotional need and responsiveness. And many of them, it was almost like infant depression. They would become lethargic. They would stop eating. They would lose weight. Their brains would stop developing. Many of them would then over time, develop an intellect level in the mentally retarded range because of the lack of brain development. And so in the United States, that prompted us to start foster care. And the idea there was to get kids in homes with families, people who could stimulate their minds and provide love and nurturing for them. And we still see, of course, foster care is an active program in the U.S. today. But fortunately, because of brain's plasticity, some children who are lacking in certain developmental milestones during critical periods, sometimes their brain will kind of catch up to their same age peers if we introduce them to a stimulating environment. Over time, they can catch up and kind of we can kind of reverse the effects of that early deprivation. We call those resilient kids. But unfortunately, sometimes abuse and neglect is the effects are pretty powerful and long term. So it's difficult to predict how well a kid's going to turn out if he's been abused or neglected significantly early in life. So as an example of that, 30% of children who are physically abused in the United States will later go on to abuse their own children. And that's a rate that's 4 times higher than the U.S. national rate for child abuse. So some of that might be due to poor emotional development, emotional regulation that occurred during the early years of abuse or neglect. Some of it may be learned behavior, but it's kind of ironic because you'd think a kid who is abused would be less likely to abuse their own children when they get older, knowing what that was like. But that's potentially one of the effects of abuse early in life. So years later, after Harry Harlow's research, Mary Ainsworth came along and did one of the more significant studies in the field of child development in the history of psychology. She wanted to learn more about attachment, and so she developed an experiment or a study where she observed children and their mothers in their home environment, naturalistic observations. And then when the kids were about 1 year of age, she introduced them to what is now called the strange situation. It's kind of like a doctor's office, like the waiting room of a doctor's office. And the mom would be in the room with the kid, and then the mom would leave, and then the mom would come back. And what she was interested in knowing is related to this child's emotional bond or attachment. Would the kid be comfortable playing with toys in this strange environment with mom in the room? How would the child react when mom leaves? And how would the child react when mom returns? And from that, she developed a list of 3 different attachment styles, which correlated with the type of mothering skills that she observed in the homes of those kids. So I'm going to show you a short video that shows how how her research worked, and you'll get a chance to see 3 different kids with 3 different attachment styles in this video.
This experiment, which I watched through a two-way mirror, is designed to gauge how secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
This bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will become small.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child 1-year-old and then follow it up and interview them about their relationships to their parents when they were 21 years old. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
After several minutes' play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
I'll get you back in 1 minute.
But she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother, get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. You see, when the mother was out, she was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with her mother, she's beginning to show a little interest in the environment, and shortly she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure?
Yes.
She's certainly much happier.
Goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in. The point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face, a sad expression, puts her face down. When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure
Yes,
attachment?
insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now, this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure. But you'll see, we get a look at his play before the separation. The mother's left. When she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away. He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the contact. We think that the difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
And so as you saw, the first baby in that video had a secure attachment. The second child, which just seemed to sit on the mom's lap and avoid looking at her and seemed emotionally distant, had an avoidant attachment. And the last child who just seemed really angry and upset, had the ambivalent or anxious attachment style. And what's interesting about this is that these attachment styles, they tend to correlate with the types of adult relationship attachment styles that we have. So it's pretty significant. That was the most significant thing about her research, showed that kids who have a secure attachment with their mother at a young age tend to go on and have secure attachment relationships with their friends and love relationships when they get older. Kids with avoidant attachment style, for example, are people who aren't real close aren't really good at getting close to people emotionally. They might even avoid intimacy in their adult relationships. And kids with the anxious, ambivalent attachment style in childhood are more likely as adults to be really hypersensitive to rejection. They might get jealous and angry very easily at their friends or love relationships. They might be really suspicious all the time about their girlfriend or boyfriend sneaking around behind them. They might monitor their phone, text messages, and everything. And it's part of that hypersensitivity they have to being rejected, and a lack of trust in others. And of course, that you probably have known some relationships where one person in the relationship is a very jealous, anxious type, kind of snooping around on the significant other all the time, trying to monitor what they're doing. And it's like they resist any separation from them, and they have that fear of rejection or separation. On the page here, I have a link to a website where you can have your own adult attachment style assessed if you want. This is the web address I have right here if you want to pause the video and write that down or something. I'm not going to stick around on this video long enough for you to do that, but it's kind of interesting to see how your attachment relationships turn out. It's also important to know that sometimes the child's temperament when they're born, like some kids are just really fussy in general, almost right from birth. Some kids are really calm right from birth, and we call that their temperament. Like some kids have a hard time adjusting to change at a really young age. Some kids don't seem to care. They're really casual and kind of whatever comes along. They seem perfectly comfortable dealing with new situations. And part of that is what we call temperament. It seems to be kind of an inborn core parts of personality, so to speak. And sometimes maybe the attachment style is a reflection of the temperament. So if you imagine a child who's really difficult and fussy all the time, that could cause mom to be less warm and nurturing towards the child, and the child ends up having maybe an avoidant or resistant attachment style. But it might not have been so much because of mom's parenting as much as it was just the child's temperament, so to speak. Likewise, even a kid with a secure attachment, those moms tend to be more responsive and nurturing towards their children at home. That's what Ainsworth found. Well, maybe that's because the kid is easygoing and just generally a happy-go-lucky kind of kid, and it's easier for mom to be more nurturing. So it's kind of like the directionality issue sometimes. But one thing research has shown that if you take kids who've been neglected in terms of their attachments early in life, and if you put them in homes or have parents go through training program to learn how to be more responsive and sensitive to their children, the attachment styles most of the time will change. And so that leads us to believe that, it could be temperament, but parenting definitely does matter. A lot of this attachment style stuff is related to the quality of parenting. So we also want to talk about parenting styles. And there's 4 parenting styles I want you to be familiar with: authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and uninvolved. And a lot of textbooks leave off uninvolved, but I like to use that one because to me, my dad was uninvolved. That is pretty emotionally detached from us kids. Part of that was due to his alcoholism, I'm sure. But I also think he was raised with parents who were kind of not very warm emotionally as well, and so it might have just kind of rubbed off on him as part of modeling or whatever. But the point is, I don't like leaving uninvolved off because I know a lot of students I've had in the past who have said they had an uninvolved parent, so I think it's legitimate to keep that in there. So these are the 4 parenting styles, but kind of like attachment styles, sometimes a parenting style is a result of the child's behavior. But most of the time, the child's behavior is a consequence or a result of the type of parenting. And you can see the correlates here. Authoritarian parents have lots of rules, but they're not really warm emotionally. Those kids tend to be have fewer social skills, can be a little bit withdrawn and unfriendly at times. Permissive parents are really warm and nurturing, but they don't really have rules. They're very lax. They don't demand much of their kids. So these are the kids that turn out to be what some people might say are like kind of spoiled kids. They're immature and kind of used to getting their way. Authoritative parents, they are warm and nurturing, and they have rules and limits established for their kids. And about 65% of parents in the United States use the authoritative parenting style. And even authoritative parents will have rules, but they will they sometimes will be flexible with their rules as long as it's within reason. But you wouldn't see that with an authoritarian parent. So authoritarian parents are definitely the strictest of the group. Permissive parents are lax. Whoops, sorry about that. Permissive parents are lax. I was trying to draw on there, and my pen's not working, but I did manage to grab the image that was on there and move it around accidentally. All right, so permissive parents are the most lax but very warm. Authoritarian parents are really strict. I always think authoritarian barbarian as a good way to keep that separate from authoritative. So authoritarian barbarian, they're kind of strict and strong with their rules. These are the parents who would be most likely to say, you have a curfew, and when you ask why, they'll say, because I said so. Because as long as you're living under my roof, you're going to follow my rules. And every parent probably says that sometimes, but authoritarian parents would be most likely to use that phrase quite often. So anyway, as I said, most parents in the United States use the authoritative parenting style, which is firm limits, but also warmth and responsiveness. They express emotion with their kids. They allow their kids to have a say in some things within reason. And the last one, the uninvolved, these are the parents who are emotionally detached, so there's little warmth and very few limits and rules for kids. So these are their parents who probably could do without having kids around, it seems like. So, and I think for a lot of students I've talked to in the past, who've had an uninvolved parent, is similar to my experience where, I have like a dad, for example, my dad, who would get off of work and then go to the bar, and then come home and eat supper and shower and sit in his chair and read the paper and fall asleep in his chair with the paper, and then get up and go to bed and then repeat the whole process over and over. And so there really wasn't much interaction with us kids, and not a whole lot going on there in terms of the emotional value of our relationships. So, all right, so that wraps up module 11, and next video will be for module 12, and our topic will be adolescence.